My name is Roland. The program is called Shedding Shackles. I've been on the air now for 30 years. I'm going to be starting my 31st year. What is my message? My message is that Christ overcame the world. Light overcomes darkness. Have you wondered why there's so much negativity in the world? Have you wondered? Well, the reason is, and let's not just talk about the world out there. Let's talk about, in your own life. There's a lot of negativity, dark thoughts, unhappy thoughts, negative thoughts, doubts, and fears, worries. What's the basis of all of that? Well, you think that you originate your own thought, but you don't realize that your thoughts come from outside. You never had an original thought in your whole life. It all comes from outside. All you do is reflect and replay what came in from the outside. But you see, was it Paul who said, we wrestle not with flesh and blood, but with principalities and powers in high places? Do you understand that? Do you understand that the reason why there's so much negativity and why there are so many negative thoughts and unhappy thoughts and worries and fears and teases and taunts and challenges, and why is that? It's because those things originate. They originate in hell. I don't know any better way to say it. They come from hell. But what you need is to have thoughts that come from heaven. Now, I'm going to say again what I've said so many times, but I keep saying it because it really makes the point, because people can relate to it. When you were a little child, you were very, very close to the kingdom of heaven, very close. And your day was a day of adventure. You woke up in the morning fresh, no baggage from the past. You rushed forward to learn and to discover all the delights of God's great green earth. It was beautiful. And you were happy, and you were filled with joy and delight. Do you remember? Well, that's very close. So the good, the brightness, the joy that filled your being, it came because you were close to heaven, close to God. But the world overcame you. Christ said, what did he say? He said, do not be overcome by evil, but overcome evil with good. Well, he overcame the world. He overcame evil with good. But you see, let's see if I can explain this to you. What happened to you is that you were immersed in an environment of negativity. You were immersed into a culture, into a family with people that were upset, and people who were angry, and people who were troubled, and people who were imperfect. No matter how nice your grandma was, or your grandpa, or your mom, or your dad, they were imperfect. And they probably did the best they could if they were decent. But it wasn't good enough. You needed more. What you needed was to have what you knew in your heart validated on the outside. You needed someone who demonstrated to you you were just a little child. And so you needed to see someone on the outside who overcame the world. You needed to see it because it would give you hope. You see? But what did you see instead? You saw your mom resenting your dad. You saw your dad. Dad was overcome by the world, wasn't he? Now, when I say overcome, I don't just mean beaten down and whooped and put down and depressed and throwing in the towel and angry, and although I do mean that also. But I also mean overcome by the world. In other words, the world rushed in, flooded the boat. See, when you were a little child, you had the beginnings of a little force field. Do you remember Star Trek. Do you remember Star Trek? The good ship Enterprise had a force field that would protect it. Well, you had the beginnings of a little force field when you were a child, and things were kept on the outside. So you played, you observed, you learned, and on the outside there were people who had issues and who were angry, and maybe even your own parents, but it stayed on the outside. Okay? But what happened was that it penetrated. Eventually, it got to you. Eventually, people emotionalized you, upset you. And then the world rushed in. And it was like your boat had a leak and everything rushed in. And then you were overcome. See, a ship should go through the water, should glide through the water. But if the ship is overcome by the waves and all the water gets inside, then the ship begins to sink, doesn't it? Well, that's what happened. It all got on the inside. But now you see what that is. Now you see, because inside, you can see what it is inside. It's negativity and it's darkness and it's unhappiness. And it never wants to give you a moment's peace. Well, it's the spirit of the world. Not only did the angry words, that's mostly how they got to you, with words, tease, comparisons, cruelty, unfair, false accusations. The list is, well, I was going to say the list is endless. It's not really endless. It's rather predictable. It's the usual. You were accused of this and that, and they said you weren't studying hard enough, and you weren't trying hard enough, and you were upsetting your mommy and your daddy, and you weren't good, and why couldn't you be like your brother or your sister, and you have to study harder. And when you went to school, there was academic pressure and peer pressure and drug pressure and performance pressure and all of that. So it seems like what the game is on the outside is pressure. Your parents pressured you, your teachers pressured you, the coaches pressured you, the other kids pressured you, the bullies pressured you, the culture pressured you, everything was pressuring you. And that seems like that's the game, pressure until they get to you, and then the outside gets on the inside. Are you with me? So that's what happened. So now you know what it is. It's an unholy spirit that wants to become your master, and it rules the world through people who are imperfect, and through people who are selfish, and through people who don't love the truth enough. They don't love the truth enough. They love selfish advantage, and they doubt the truth. See, they hear the truth and they say, well, I don't know. Then they hear somebody else say, hey, you can make money, you can be famous, you can have all this power, you can have people admire you and respect you, you can get even with those people that put you down, and you can have all these good things, and people will see them and they'll be jealous. And, you listen to that and think, well, maybe I could. See, how many of you went to work for a big corporation? When you walked through the door, you were relatively innocent. And then you saw the people there and they seemed weird. Some people were totally into their work. They would just work like 12, 14 hours a day, and that's all they could talk about was work, 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 work. You thought, wow, this is really weird. Then other people were doing office politics, and then other people were unhappy, and they were trying to figure out some way to get the company. You see, you saw that. You thought it was weird. But then look what happened. 10, 15, 20 years later, maybe you were totally immersed in that culture, and that's the way you became. Then all you could talk about was work, work, work. See what I mean? Not that work is wrong. Not that work is wrong, but how you work and the attitude. See what I mean? But what happens is the pressures on the outside get on the inside. So now, getting back to what I began to say, Christ overcame the world. What did he overcome? He overcame all the pressures. the peer pressure, the drug pressure, the performance pressure, the comparison pressure, the sex pressure, the academic pressure, the pressure to be better and try harder. Yeah, religious pressure. Be better, try harder, do more good, be nicer. Pressure. See? And goal setting to make more and do more and have more and be more. It never gives you a moment's peace. He overcame that. He overcame that. And all you have to do is have a change of heart about all the things on the outside. A change of heart. You begin to see them for what they are. The tinsel titles, the promotions, the pressures, the ambition. You see them for what they are. How many of you have had a moment of clarity where maybe there was a close call? One of your family members something happened, and it was a very close call. And after that, or during that close call time where you didn't know whether things were going to work out okay or not, you looked at all the things that you had planned, all the things that seemed so important, and you realized that they weren't important at all. Well, Christ overcame all of the pressures and the teases and the challenges and the goal setting and all of that. He overcame it all. He said, unless you become as a little child. Now do you get it? Now do you get it? So you have to have a change of heart. You have to see that the glory that's promised on the outside and the rewards for being ambitious and stepping over other people and putting aside what's truly important for some goal, you have to see that for what it is. And then have a change of heart about it. And just see that it's not worth the candle. Now, does that mean that you have to throw in the towel? See, what happens that some people, they see the outside for what it is, and they see other people teasing and pressuring and challenging, but they make the mistake of resenting what they see. And that changes the quality of your response. It leads to either throwing in the towel or becoming bitter or something like that. But all you have to do is just stand back and just see it for what it is. How many of you, see, I'm trying to point out little occasions in your life where you were close to this awareness, this brightness, this shining truth that wants to become. See, you need to let God in. You've let everything else in. Maybe you didn't want to let it in, but it got in. Either you let it in or you resented it and it got in anyway. So I said when you were a little child, life was sweet and joyous, and it was a life of discovery, remember? And then I talked about moments of clarity when maybe somebody had a close call and you saw all the things you thought were not so important. Well, here's another example of that clarity, of being able to stand back and see things as they are, not hate them, not resent them, not feel sorry for them, just see them for what they are. Here's an example. How many of you have had like a boyfriend and everybody was telling you he's no good, but you didn't believe them? You were all caught up. See? Remember how I said the outside gets on the inside? You were all caught up. And then all of a sudden one day you found a voicemail. You listened to a voicemail, some girl calling him. Or you saw a picture on his iPhone. You saw something. You went over to his apartment and you saw something. You see what I mean? Then all of a sudden, it's like the morning after the night before. You know, it's the wake-up call. That's what it is. It's the wake-up call. And suddenly you stand back and you see him for what he is. See what I mean? Well, that's what you need. You need to see things for what they are. And yes, it's a little shocking to see the world for what it is, but you know the way the world is anyway, don't you really? But you've been caught up in it. See, it robbed you of your. See, it robbed you of the of joy and innocence and brightness and true creativity. You could have been an Einstein. You could have been a Stephen Jobs. You could have been a Ruth, a Madame Curie, a Sojourner Truth, a Susan B. Anthony, a Moses, a Beethoven, a Mozart. But no, the world got to you. And so, in a sense, it did rob you, but only because, well, remember, you were only a little child or a teenager. You didn't know any better. The world was so powerful, it outshouted the still small voice within. So you went along. Plus, you were angry at your parents, probably. So now you must see the world for what it is. Don't resent it. See, as long as you resent the world, you resent your parents, resent your mom, resent your dad, resent other people, no matter who it is you resent, it keeps you tied to the world. It keeps you tied to that negative system, to that dog-eat-dog system, that animalistic, that egotistical, that system of pride. That's what it is. So let go of your grudge. Let go of your resentment. Let it go. Just let it go. Make it unimportant. See things for what they are. Just go about your life quietly. Do your work. Be a mom or dad. See the sunshine and the beautiful leaves on the trees. Just see things as they are, like you were a little child. Remember when you were a little child? Maybe you were sitting in the back seat of your car and your mom and daddy were going somewhere and you looked out the window and you saw trees and houses and people and all kinds of wonderful things. It was like being on vacation. Every day was like being on vacation. So that's the way you must become again. You must become like that, like a tourist. Just like a tourist, observing things, seeing people, yes, seeing their folly, seeing their foolishness, seeing it all, but just not letting it upset you or anger you or anything. See? And things like all the pressures and the words and it all just kind of goes in one ear and out the other. It's like watching a television at the other end of the room, and it's not a good program. It's an old movie or something, and it's just blaring away, but it's like you don't even notice it. It doesn't bother you, doesn't affect you. It's like you see what I mean? That's what you need to refine that. So you're a little distant from the world, and you're closer to God. That's right, you are. By way of intuition. That's the faculty you had when you were a little child. You still have it, but you ignored it. Now you must refine your intuition and cherish it. And live from intuition, from what you know in your heart. And then you will live unto God. And then the negativity will flee. And life becomes truly positive.